Hello everyone, and welcome to another video of Confronting Chaos, a series of partner videos to Chaos fight footage to outline the enemies and explain why characters are boosted. In this video, I'll be going over the Song of Ice and Iron Heretic event Chaos fight, so let's get started. As a Heretic event, this fight is actually 3 waves, so I'll quickly go over each wave of enemies because none of them are new. Wave 1 is 2 target snipers. They'll start the fight by charging, giving themselves bravery and buffs, and one of them will surge afterwards. Not entirely sure what that does though. After a few turns, they'll use charge again, rebuffing themselves and gaining a fair amount of bravery yet again. Overall though, their scariest moves are their group attacks, one of which is fire, which Leon cannot absorb, and the other 2 have HP hits, meaning they're somewhat actually dangerous if you're not using Leon. Wave 2 is 2 Ice Gigas. The main thing with them is that if they break you, their next attack will be a powerful group ice attack with high turn rate, after which they will try and kill you on their next turn. It is much less of a headache to try and stay safe before they start their big break chains than after, but breaking them isn't impossible if you can keep at least 1 unit safe, and they are also susceptible to HP silence. Wave 3 is 1 Flawless. Similar to some other Bahamut type enemies, the Flawless will fully heal itself after you get through its first bar of HP. But due to the nature of this event, it's also weak to all elements, meaning it's not hard to hit high brave numbers against it still. Most of its moves are non-elemental, meaning Leon can keep the whole party safe. There's only one move that will get through this absorption, but it's only a brave attack, and for the most part all of its other moves aren't too hard to deal with either, whether or not you're using Leon. It is also capable of cleansing the party of all generic buffs, so that's something to keep in mind. With the enemies covered, I'll quickly go over the noteworthy units you can pull for this event. Leon gets a very small rework with this event, along with his realization. The rework is very basic, just adding another use to each skill and changing how some of his conditional buffs and enhanced attacks work, as well as increasing the overflow of Dark Bind. Otherwise, his base kit is the same, with his S1 having splash damage and his S2 having split damage and applying sap. His EX meanwhile is the really interesting and unique part of his kit, as it lets him force a dark enchant onto applicable enemy attacks and lets the party absorb those attacks for bravery, nullifying any brave damage but letting HP damage go through. His EX Plus isn't very loaded, but does bring him up to modern Chaos levels very effectively. Realization improves the EX cast damage and applies a Dark Imperil, and improves Black Knight's Pride with more attack and overflow for Leon. 1 ingot is, of all things, a party aura for max bravery and attack, a strange but appreciated choice. 2 ingots starts Leon off with 3 levels of Dark Knight as well as full EX gauge, letting you start off applying the Dark Imperil and the absorption buff immediately. 3 ingots doubles the hit count of the EX cast, gives it a fair amount of base overflow, and also lowers the Dark Stream Plus condition to 50% of max HP, making it easier to keep up the EX buff. Vivi's rework is just a bit more substantial. The base power of his S1 is improved with the extend adding another hit and overflow, with his S2 improving the duration of the generic buffs, adding a decently strong HP attack after the cast, and improving the damage of Fire Plus. His EX is a pretty simple split damage group attack that gives Vivi a 1-use enhanced HP attack for a few turns, similar to another character from Final Fantasy IX, Ico. His EX Plus adds a fair bit, but honestly may be coming a little too late. Realization improves the EX cast with more hits and applies a Fire Imperil to all enemies. It also further improves his basic attacks so they have more hits and extend all the buffs granted by focus. 1 ingot is a recast speed upgrade, which is pretty helpful since at the moment Vivi doesn't get any free skills or skill regen, and in fact even has more casts of fire as part of his cursed artifacts. 2 ingots gives him starting recast gauge and all the buffs attached to focus, saving him a cast and letting his EX rotation start a little bit faster. 3 ingots gives the EX cast a double cast effect, and also improves double fire with more strength, overflow, and brave return before the second set of hits. Arciella is an event unit who gets an early return before her lost chapter. She functions as a character with 2 modes. Her skill 1 dispels all enemies and allows brave regen and party battery. Her skill 2 debuffs enemies with the rare and valuable HP attack silence and gives Arciella splash damage. Her EX heals, deals split damage, and provides more offensive and regen auras for the party. As for the team I chose, here's the breakdown. This is Vaughn's last featured event during his burst period, and he's still pretty good for it. While the first 2 waves are multi-target, the last one is single target. I found it more sensible to use his LD cast on the first 2 waves for the group damage, trying to keep both enemies in each wave around roughly the same HP values. All enemies are susceptible to blind, and the Flawless being weak to all elements kept his damage still really good after it healed. It was also very easy to keep Vaughn safe during Wave 2 since Red Spiral and Pyroclasm both have high amounts of Brave Return. Arciella serves as the true support for this team, offering more effective healing and actual battery to the party. Boosting regen is certainly nice when you have other units who can benefit from it, and she is the most effective form of battery for Wave 2. Also in Wave 2 is where her HP silence is most relevant, as you can use it on the Gigas before they use Ice Quake and they won't be able to use Lunge on their next turn, giving you more time to shave it if turn order isn't in your favor. Leon, as mentioned earlier, functions as a pseudo tank, nullifying almost all enemy damage in the first and last waves and making the second wave a bit easier. Thanks to boosted stats, his max bravery is high, and his overflow on Darkbind Plus makes it a solid move against groups. And of course, his EX dealing total damage and being up every 3 turns or so was also great for damage output. The Ice Gigas still use strong elemental moves, so he can still be in trouble during that wave. His sap isn't exactly enough to keep him safe or make the Gigas less dangerous. Overall though, Leon's benefits in the whole fight easily outweigh his weaknesses in the second wave, and thanks to Arciella's battery, his non-skill damage was still respectable. With that, this Chaos fight should be covered. If you want to see my footage of this fight, I'll link it in the corner and in the description below. If you liked what you saw and want to see future fights, subscribe so they show up as they're made. If you have any suggestions or thoughts, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.